sitting down with Jennifer and Mark of the Fusion Wedding Professionals. So my question is, obviously the Fusion wedding planning party, it's a cool concept. It's not something that a lot of brides are used to because, you know, kind of bridal expos and huge bridal fairs are what most people expect. So how did this idea kind of come about? Where did it all start, and how did we kind of get to this place we're at right now?
Go ahead, Mark.
I guess
It's yours.
I guess I should start with this. Well, my business is also up in Cincinnati, and actually this concept began there first before I brought it to North Carolina. And you're talking to somebody here that has been in business for over 4 decades now. So the change in marketing has changed dramatically through the years. And unfortunately, the biggest change is the expense involved in all of this. So as my business changed throughout the decades, it got to a point in which I started to really listen to the so-called experts about your marketing. So you need to do this, 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 on and on and on. And in 2007, because I had just retooled, because I was at that point in time switching to high definition, I thought, okay, Mark, you need to start to listen to these people and you need to start to do all of these things. And it was amazing to see the amount of money that I was then spending on my marketing. And it was okay because of 2 reasons. One, I was after more volume. And then the other reason was because it was working in the very beginning. Bridal shows, you would be shocked how many bridal shows that I used to do. And then eventually I even did some of the pay-to-play. I don't want to use any names of these wedding services, but these different, we'll call them review sites. And I started those up about I think about 2011. I even did some print advertising, which I had never done before. And I started to see, like I said, a lot of success in the very beginning. But then all of a sudden, I'm like, why? I mean, talk about hitting a peak, and then it just gradually started going downhill. And I just kept spending more money, thinking, you know, that will ultimately solve that problem. And of course, eventually it did not. So as I looked at all of that, and I looked at what I used to do when I first handled all of my marketing way back since 1980, I said, what am I doing differently that I wasn't doing before? And what do I need to do to make these changes? So what ended up coming out of this whole Fusion Wedding Professionals concept was based a lot on frustration because of that cost. And I was very concerned about my business because I thought, I'm going to work myself to death trying to keep up with the not just the increase of price, but the variety of different ways of marketing. So what I looked at was different associations that I had belonged to. There was one down here that several of us, and I think that's how Jennifer and I first met, was in one of those associations. And associations I found to be somewhat effective, but they seemed to be, just like the other marketing I was doing, they were very effective in the very beginning, but then they started to run thin. And I looked at that and I thought, what is wrong with an association? Why? Because this, at its core, it should work. It should be a group of professionals coming together and they're recommending one another. Well, depending on the association, the first problem was the expense. The couple in Cincinnati were extremely expensive. The one down here was not. But the other issue began, as I began to really look at an association, it's about member growth, which sounds like a really good idea, but you have to be very careful in terms of where that goes. So if you take an association in which you had maybe 5 or 6, we'll use the photography category as would be appropriate for you, and you have maybe 5 or 6 photographers. Well, next thing you know, because the whole thing is about growth, there's 15 to 20 photographers in there. And I started to see that as a commonality, especially as I looked at the pay-to-play wedding websites, the review sites. And you would see, literally, in Cincinnati especially, I mean, there would be hundreds of photographers that would be listed. And so then you're like, well, what do you do? What could you possibly do that would set yourself apart? And I talked to a lot of marketing people, and the focus always seemed to be on what you're doing wrong. You know, why can't you figure out what makes you unique? Well, when it gets down to reality, making yourself unique, you're unique only to that particular client. So you can't constantly just be reinventing yourself just for a particular client. So it then finally dawns on me, that's just not the direction to go. You just can't have that many people. So that's where that initial concept, that Fusion Wedding Professionals, in the very beginning it was designed so that you would have just one vendor per category. So right away that would eliminate any type of competition within. And then the idea also, as opposed to most marketing, which basically is almost all online, it also does a combination of not only being online, but also actually having contact with the couples. And I think that they really appreciate that, to be able to go to one of these parties and actually be able to talk to, as someone said in one of the testimonials, Austin actually said, it's nice to talk to humans.
Yeah.
So that, I think, all of that combined and kind of culminated into what then became that concept. When I then, and it was not successful in Cincinnati in the beginning, but everything that you do, you learn from it. And in fact, I thought, okay, this is what went wrong in Cincinnati. I'm going to now try it in North Carolina. So here we come to North Carolina, and there were two venues, Carolina Colors and Butterfly Kisses Pavilion. And I kind of knew both of the owners, Ken Gerhardt, who runs Carolina Colors, and then Katrina Naylor at Butterfly Kisses. And I said, I want to just get together with you guys and I want to talk about this concept. And both of them just thought, well, let's give it a shot. And so that was kind of the beginning of it here. And here again, and Jennifer will attest to this because she's been in it the whole way, it was very successful, and then we started running into a variety of hiccups and issues, but all of that is part of how things evolve. And you look for what's not working and what do you need to change. Last year, 2020, the COVID year, what all of us saw from that is not just a devastation of the small businesses, but especially the wedding small business owner, because we are all about people getting together and enjoying each other and dancing and having this party all to celebrate a wedding. And yet that's not going to happen. So last year, I think, was a real wake-up call for all of us. And Jennifer and Katrina and I, we decided to kind of even take a look at the Fusion Wedding Professionals and what do we do? You know, what do we do with this? And is it time to actually make this a little bit bigger? And that's what we ended up deciding to do. So we just kind of revamped everything and began to open it up for other members. And that's the exciting part. And of course, you guys are one of the very recent new members as well. There's so much potential with this, because what it does is it's referred to as a shared marketing strategy. So rather than you yourself trying to take on this marketing beast that's out there, you've got a group of people that are doing it with you as well. And still it's a learning process, but the more people involved in everyone's particular talents end up making the group much stronger. That's why this is not an association, so to speak. There's no dues or anything like that. It's a group of wedding professionals that get together and try to figure out, okay, what's going to work? How do we handle this marketing?
Absolutely.
And yeah, so.
And how do we adjust as the marketplace adjusts.
Sure.
Because when Mark was talking about his business, how it was 40, 30, 20 years ago, we didn't have the social media that we have now. And so you have to adjust your marketing and then also just the way you do business as well.
For sure.
And so that's what we're doing. We're just kind of making those small adjustments as we go.
Absolutely. And I love the aspect of the event planning party because we've been in plenty of expos, and then I know I've attended so many with, friends who are getting married, and you leave there with this giant bag just full of business cards and rack cards and little pins and water bottles, and you're like, what do I do with all this
That's
information?
right.
So I love the fact that it's intimate and it's an opportunity for you to have an actual conversation with a vendor and not you like sprinting by their table and them throwing something at you so you can go to every single person. I think that's really cool, and I feel like brides can really appreciate that. People with them, their fiancés, mothers, everyone can appreciate the fact that you're able to form some type of connection with a vendor where it's not an internet contact form or, like I said, you running past them throwing
That's
marketing
right.
materials. I think that's really cool.
And that's the one thing that when we talk to brides, because we would invite them to our parties, and there were more than one that said, I came out of that wedding show crying because they were so overwhelmed. It's just getting herded down the convention center, up and down, and then they come here and it's a party atmosphere.
Sure.
And it's relaxed, and they get to bring their fiance and maybe their parents, and it's just this one-on-one conversation.
Absolutely.
And then we help them move around the room, so it's not, what do I do now? It's we're helping them be able to plan their wedding.
I love that.
And, I mean, we've had some come through and just use all our vendors.
Really?
One-stop shop.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So if a bride is wanting to attend the next party coming up, kind of walk us through the process of signing up, RSVPing, and then what's that day look like for her?
So in order to sign up, say for the Carolina Colors one coming up this Sunday, it's simple. You just, I think we've already mentioned the fusionweddingprofessionals.com. Go there. Go ahead and you'll see the RSVP or invite page, and you just simply go to it. There's just a few simple questions. It's not anything major. One thing, of course, that we do want to know is how many people you're bringing. Typically it may be just the couple, but sometimes the parents come along, sometimes the maid of honor or something like that. So we just don't want you to bring 35 people or so, but if you have people that are very interested and they're also assisting you in the planning of your wedding, and because we will be feeding them all. So, just keep that in mind and make sure that you get those numbers in there. And you can always reach out to us. The email, when you sign up, you'll as soon as you do sign up, you'll get a response right away to say that it went through. You can also then reach out back through that same email address if you want to check with us on anything else, and Jennifer and I would respond to that, because occasionally someone will say, whether there's somebody that's coming in from out of town, can they come, and whatever.
Change a number or something.
So really nothing any big. And then so that process then is very simple. It's easy for you to do, and it's free to attend.
So once they arrive, we'll invite them in. We usually get them something to drink, and pretty much get a start with, what are you looking for today? And because they may just be looking for one or two vendors, they may be looking for all their vendors. And then, of course, at Toronto Palace, we'll be giving the tour of all the venues. We have about 7 to 10 different types of venues, and so they'll get to see all those, move around the room and talk to all the vendors, and there might be vendors there that they didn't expect. Like, for example, dance instructors.
Very cool.
So they wouldn't have necessarily thought about that, but we will have our dance instructors there.
Awesome. All right, Mark, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today. Guys, make sure you check out the Fusion Wedding Professionals website. We'll pop it on the screen, and it'll also be up in the description. But again, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.